Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we are back in snapshots, and that is because we are going to be covering a technical feature. Minecraft added a new item component, or they actually added I think 3, but we're going to be covering one of the main ones, and that is the weapon item component. This weapon component doesn't do as much as I thought it would, but if we quickly just show here, we can grant ourselves a netherite sword with the weapon component, and it has 2 fields currently. Now, I will give my feedback, and some fields I hope get added afterwards. But the 2 fields are damage per attack, and this can be a field of a float or an int. So if I quickly just show you, it can be like that. And I currently have this to 12. I think you can also have it as 0, and I don't know what the maximum can be. If you see, okay, so it seems like the max is somewhere around that number. And then the second field is it can disable blocking. And this is a true or false. So by default, if you don't specify this, it will be false. And you can also add it to be true. So now let's cover what both of these do. So if I now grant myself a sword with this, the attack damage does not change. And I think a lot of people thought that's what this damage per attack meant. But it doesn't. It means how much durability damage the sword will take per attack. Now obviously a normal netherite sword will deal 1 damage to the sword. If it has unbreaking, then that damage is obviously adjusted. But if I was to attack this husk, you will see that I'm not taking any damage. And that is because I specified 0 within this. If I now set this to 250 and I grant myself the sword, if I was to now attack a husk, you will see the sword is now heavily damaged because it's removed 250 durability damage. Now this is upon attack, and it only works inside of survival mode, so attacking a mob inside of creative doesn't remove it. Now the second part can disable blocking. Now once again, I misread this when they announced it, but if I quickly just try to get myself a husk that can pick up this sword, there we go. I'm now just going to spawn a husk that can pick up loot, so I don't have to sit there spawning them over and over again. So if I spawn this one down and throw it an iron sword, this iron sword has had the tags changed, so if I quickly just show you, you can see that I've got an iron sword with the same attributes that I showcased. And now, if I was to grab myself a shield, and I was to block with this shield, if the husk was then to hit me, it would disable this shield, just like how axes work. So you can now add that ability to swords with an item component. Now, a quick little update, because I recorded this video before 25W03A released. And now, although the things work exactly the same, they did make one change in snapshot 25W03A, which I am going to quickly just mention. Now, the only change they made is to the damage per attack. Now, obviously, this is what the command would look like before, and all you need to do inside of this snapshot and onwards is do item underscore damage underscore per underscore attack. And all they added is this first part, just to specify that you are damaging the item rather than anything else. And I think this is a good change because it obviously clears up some confusion on this possibly being player damage or entity damage, but they are the only changes that we saw to this item component, so hopefully we see more in the future. That's what both of the 2 fields do. Now let me quickly just talk about some changes I would like to see to this weapon item component. The first thing I would like to see is the ability to change attack damage with the field and also attack speed. Now I do know this can be done by adding the attribute modifiers component, but I think it would just be so much easier because it's for the weapon if they integrated that into the weapon component. So the attack damage you enter and attack speed you enter will automatically enter as an attribute. Now obviously that's just a quality of life. It's not needed because you can do that with the attribute modifiers. It obviously just requires a whole nother step or another whole item component added to the weapon or sword. As to be honest, when I first read the patch notes, I thought damage per attack, that's what that meant, but it doesn't. It means durability damage. So it would be cool to see that. For example, it could be something like attack underscore damage, and then you enter a number. So let's say we wanted to do 8 damage like the netherite sword. You would do 8.0, and then this attack damage will automatically be entered as the attack damage for the weapon. And then for attack speed, it could be the same, so it's attack underscore speed. And then once again, you enter a value, so the current one is 1.5. And then we can do that like so. Not only would this be so much easier for creating custom weapons, the attribute modifiers doesn't work like how other swords work. So if you try to add a attribute modifier to a Minecraft item. If you try to add an attribute modifier to a sword where it says when in main hand, that doesn't work like that. Which if I quickly just show this is an example. You can see that when held, it's plus 400 scale. Now you can change this, so if I do add value right here, you can now see that it's plus 4 scale. But that is how it works. It shows plus 4 rather than how swords work where it just shows the attack damage. So although this is possible with the attribute item component, I think them adding it to swords would make so many people happy. Now, one other thing I would like to see, let's quickly just shrink myself back down. Now, the next thing that I think they should add to the weapon component is a option for can block. Now, this obviously is different to the can disable blocking. So this would once again be true or false, and if you have it as true, you would basically be able to block with your shield, like how you could prior to 1.9. And for people who are new to Minecraft, you'd be able to block like you can with a shield. And I think that would then be really cool, because then you would then be able to create custom swords like older PvP and newer versions. They could even go one step further with this and add another new thing called blocking damage reduction. And this blocking damage reduction would be a float, so it would be 0 point something, and this can be 0.0 up to 1.0. And what this would do is you'd be able to specify how much damage the blocking of your sword or your tool would be able to do. If you'd want it to work like shields, you would then do 1.0 because you want to block every damage that is coming at you. But let's say you only want it to block 50% of damage. So if the attack does 5 hearts, you would take 2.5 hearts, but the other 2.5 would be consumed by the weapon. You would then obviously be able to do 0.5. Now this component is really good no matter what, but I just wanted to give my thoughts and feedback on what could be done to the component to make it way better. Now obviously the can block and blocking damage reduction, that could be added to its own component, maybe called like shielded or shield. But I just thought we would add it to the weapon component just because of how swords used to work back prior to 1.9. Now there is one final thing I want to add to this video, and that is one more feature I would like to see to this item component, and that is the ability to add on hit effects. So for example, when you hit a mob, this would basically specify what hitting a mob would do. Now I imagine this working like death effects, where you can enter clear all effects, you can also enter teleport randomly, and you can also enter to grant an effect. So I imagine it working something like this, where you can add a part to the command, which if I quickly just do that, you can add something like this on hit, and then it would obviously take in the values right here. Now obviously the values would depend on what you want the sword to do, as this would open up for so much as well. Now you can kind of do this with enchantments. You can make your own custom enchantment that does something and then obviously add that enchantment to your sword. But this would once again remove a whole step, like the whole attribute modifier command. So for example, this is how the death effects works for the death protection, which is a totem of undying. So it works something like this, but obviously instead of death effects, it would be hit effects or something like that. And then you'd obviously enter the type, which in this case, it would clear all effects. So if you hit a player with the sword with this component, and they had night vision, it would basically remove that night vision. Now this is obviously going very deep into the custom items and custom weapons. I definitely think this is an easier way to do it before they obviously go full in depth with custom items. But anyway, that is it for this video. I just wanted to cover this item component as well as the ideas I had to maybe improve it. Now if you have any ideas for how the component could be improved, changed or anything like that, do let me know in the comments. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. And hopefully in future snapshots, Minecraft do add more to this weapon component because it does have a lot of potential.